Hello, and welcome to what I'm hoping will serve as the user documentation and guide for enhanced FPS creator. I'm going to go over all of the bits, all of the features, show you in depth how to use each and every part, and as such, this is going to be quite a long video, so I'm going to put timestamps down the bottom like to act as chapters. So if you want to access a specific area of the guide, just to look up something that you really want to use or need to know how to use, then that will be an option for you. So with that said, let's get to the first chapter, which will be getting started. So when you first download Enhanced FPS Creator, obviously you'll get a project. I recommend going to the library and cloning it to create another project, which I've already done here, and then opening that one, and you should be met with something that looks like this, which is the example map. So if we go into the content, we'll go into core and maps, and there we go. So we've got our example map here, and this is our title menu. This is what the game will load up to once it goes through the intro splash level map, and then it will load up to the title menu, and that's when you build a game, that will be there. So you don't need to worry about that. But this is the example map, which is just essentially a brief overview of all the different features. So if you were to hit play, and we can move around, and we've got the debug HUD up, and everything is cool. So we've got some weapon pickups here. This is what the default ones that the game comes with, but I've gone ahead and prepared some assets to use for this demo, and as you can see, they're all blatting away there. And we've got some little sprites because we're going to make show you how to make a copy of Doom, well, a clone of Doom or something very similar. It's going to be a demonstration of how to put all of these components together, how to use them all, how to integrate new weapons, enemy types, projectiles, all that kind of stuff. So what I'm sure you'll probably want to do first of all is have a play around with some of the features. So if we go back into the main folder and we find our interactables and we bring out our pickups, these were all ready-made game assets that you can just drag in and use. So if we bring in a keycard, for example, now when you bring in a pickup, you'll get some options over here on the side. I'll go over these in more detail in the individual ones, but basically we've got some values that we can change here. So we can say it's a yellow keycard, and we could color it yellow. So let's find a nice yellow. We'll do the glow one. I've included quite a few materials, and then we can change the sound for the collection. But that's it. Put it into the level, and then pick it up, and you'll see in the top left there, we collected a yellow keycard. Now, it's very hard to see with the glowy backgrounds, but you'll notice, there we go. We've got little HUD messages that tell us what we've picked up, and all that good stuff. And so that's how easy it is to add pickups to the game. So now we've got some weapons that we've picked up as part of the example map. So now we can scroll through them with the mouse wheel. And we can use the number keys. And they've all got their own projectile types. So they've all got their own fire rates and animations. And these are just blueprint models that I quickly put together. They're not animated or rigged. So what we're going to do is go over adding some of the stuff to the game that you would want to download. So imagine you've already downloaded some assets, you're like, oh, I like these guns, so we're going to download these guns. Now you'll notice if I simulate that not all of these guns are animating, because the animated ones are going to be examples of how we're going to add skeletal meshes to the game with animations. And there is also another type of animation blueprint that I've included for if you're using static models and you make them in two pieces. So this grenade launcher, as you can see, is two pieces, and so is this shotgun. So that about covers the getting started. I mean, obviously, you'll notice there are other things. We just hit play and play properly instead of simulating. So let's play on the select viewport. You'll see we've got a health meter, an armor meter, and a stamina meter. So if we were to hit ourselves with a rocket, for example, take a nice big chunk of health, and if we were to sprint around for a bit, you'll see the stamina starts to go down. We've got weapons, obviously keeping track of all their different ammo types. So it's a pretty fully fledged, fully functional system that's ready to go right out of the box. If you just want to use all the default models to prototype something out, it's all there for you perfectly. And we've got other things in the interactables as well, such as elevators and doors. So if we bring an elevator into this and just show you, you can change all the values over here. So we've got our noise going up, our noise coming down, our mesh, our speed, and how long it's going to hover at the top. So to make it go up, we just set this highest point to wherever we want the elevator to go up to, and then we simply step on. And it'll wait for the specified amount to wait, and it will come back down again. And then the same, exact same principle for doors. So if we were to drag a door in, and we can then set the highest point that it should raise up to, and then we simply approach the door to come at it from behind, and there we go, it goes up. And you have the same variables for the door with the opening, closing, raising speed, and all that good stuff. So let's go over the next bit that you're probably going to want to get into, which is going to be setting up the weapons. Okay, so to set up the weapons, we'll go into our weapons folder, and we will find firearms, and now we have our repository for the firearms. Now I've got the default meshes that come with the gamer in these two folders here, meshes combined and meshes split, along with some materials that I've added. The blueprints themselves for the guns are in this blueprint folder. So these are what get equipped to your viewport when you pick up one of the pickup variants. We'll go over the pickup variants later on down the line. So we've got a weapon template here, which you can use to make any changes or add new weapons, or you can just replace the ones in here. So that's what I'm going to do because they're already set up in the menus, and it will just make life so much easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the pistol blueprint. Now you'll notice we've got some events here. That one should be commented. I'll just do that now. And this is for the shell ejection. So each weapon comes with its own preset. Everything's already preset for it. So we've got these two collision volumes here to determine where the muzzle flash and the shell should be ejected from. And then we've got our two separate models that allow us to animate it using timelines. So we'll just reset that back to 0. So if we go into the event graph, we don't need to, we're not going to need to animate the timeline anymore because we're going to use a pistol that's got a skeletal mesh and an animation, but we'll keep all of this the same. Because what happens is whenever the player fires in the first person character, it dispatches this event which will eject the shell, and it will play a camera shake which you can scale to whatever you like, and then it will rack the slide back and forward across the timeline. This is how we control how often the player can fire. Because when this is finished, it will reset the fact that the player can fire, allowing the first-person character to pull the trigger again. On the update, we were using it to update the location of the slide, but we're not going to do that anymore. And we also want to make sure we don't have any references to these, since we're going to be deleting them. There we go. So now we've got rid of that. We can select our default scene route, and we can add a skeletal mesh, and we'll call this pistol. Now we want to parent these back to the weapon. Now, as you can see, we have no mesh in there at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our pistol here, and we're going to use this in the blueprint. So this is the anim pistol fire. So this is the animation file that I've dragged into the level. It's not what we're going to add in here. We're going to add the SKM. So we're just going to find our pistol. And there we go. And now all we need to do is move that up. And basically we want to put the pivot for the blueprint about around where we want the gun to pivot around. Okay, and now we got our shell ejector. So we're going to need to move this now, because it's going to be around there that we want the shell ejected from. And now we need our muzzle flash, and we can put that in position just at the front of the pistol, like so. And there we go. That's literally it. The only thing we need to do now is get a reference to our pistol out, and we will play an animation, and that animation is going to be the pistol fire. So put that in the wrong place, haven't I? So we need to get rid of that for now, and we'll just move that over because we don't want this to play on every update. We want this to play and then run the timeline. So let's do that. And just neaten that up a little bit like that. So now also we noticed that it was a little bit close to the camera. So let's move it along a bit like that and along a little there. So these little bits of fine tuning, depending on where the pivot for your weapon is in relation to the pivot on the character. Depending on where your pivot is in relation to the character, you might have the... What am I trying to say? Depending on where the pivot point of the model is in relationship to the pivot point attached to the character, you might need to move this around a little bit. So I think we need to push that forward a little bit like that and then bring it down. And also, let's go and have a look at that animation because it seems to be going off on somewhat of a delay. So let's jump into the Spoon Guns folder, which is where I've prepped all my weapons. As you can see, I've got them all separated into their own little neat folders. So let's have a look at this animation and see if we can troubleshoot it. So let's pause it. We'll get a better view and drag this back. Yeah, we don't need all of these frames in front. It's going off on a little bit of a delay. So let's find the last frame where it moved. There we go. Oh, I took it all the way back to the start. All right. That was the first frame that it moved. There. There we go. So we'll get rid of all the frames in front of that. You might need to do some cleanup on the models. Like I said, I got these from Sketchfab, so these aren't ones I made. These are ones I just downloaded. So let's see how that goes now. That's much better. Right then. So let's hit play and test that out in game. And there we go. I accidentally picked up the shotgun. But yeah, there we go. That's easy. It's that easy to get your new custom weapons into the game. So they're complete with animations, shell ejections, bullet impacts, and obviously muzzle flash. And that muzzle flash looks a little bit low, so let's tweak it a bit. So this is going to be the process you'll go through when adding new weapons to the game. It's really quick, really straightforward. You just got to fettle them a little bit, again, depending on the pivot points. And that's much better. And there we go, we've got our animated skeletal mesh pistol. It's that simple. So let's go over that again. Okay, so let's do another weapon. So we've got our blueprints. We've got our shotgun. Yes, the shotgun is actually going to be a very good example of how we're going to use the timelines. So let's go in and set this up. So in this case, because we're not using a skeletal model, we can keep the static one and just replace the parts. So we've got shotgun. Let's search for that. We've got the basic ones that come with the game, and here we go. We've got our modified one. So that's it. There we go. Now that one's in the game, and it looks like the pivot point is pretty well set there. And we can tweak the scale and whatnot later if we need to. And we'll grab our new shotgun slide, which we've also got. As I say, I set these up. Oh, I called it pump, didn't I? Pump. I set these up in advance, but like I said, there are lots of tutorials out there for how to import stuff into Unreal. So let's set our muzzle flash up as well then. So we'll move that along. And because these are all parented to the shotgun, we only need to move the base once we come to fine tune it in the window. So let's move that to there, and we'll move the shell ejector to about there. Oh wait, here we go. Here's our little model, eject on the model. So we'll move the shotgun shell ejection point. We'll put it just inside because the shells, it should have no collision with the shells. Right, there we go. So now we can pick up our shotgun as well. So where is it? And there we go. Now we've got a new shotgun, a fancy new pistol, and we're getting through the weapons. Now, this is all set up for you. Like I said, the animation is controlled by this timeline. So all you've got to do is change out the model for the slide, change out the model for the base. And when you're doing models like this for the shotgun, it's a good idea to make sure both pieces have their pivot points in the same place. Like that, see? So that when you put them in this model, you don't have to like fettle them and line them up. But it's that simple to add a two-piece weapon to the game. And as I say, all the variables are there for you. And if you're using just the existing weapon blueprints, you're not going to have any problem integrating them into the game. It's just going to be bish bash bosh done. So in the spirit of making this spoon game, let's go ahead and replace the rest of these models as well. So we've got a replacement for the super shotgun here, which I think you'll agree looks pretty cool. Triple barreled excellence. So if we open up the double barrel, where's our double barrel? I've already got it highlighted. Okay, so once again, we can remove these because we're going to use a skeletal mesh and an animation, which means we also need to move this across. So this event fires off first. Then we're going to add a component in the form of a skeletal mesh. We'll call this super shotgun. There we go. And then we'll drop that onto the scene root. Oh no. We'll get rid of that, get rid of that, and get rid of that, and get rid of that. And then we'll parent these to this, like so. There we go. So now in our viewport, we've got our skeletal mesh ready. So we can add our super shotgun to it. So let's look for super shotgun. And there we go. So now we just maneuver this down to where we want the pivot point to be, which I think will be about there. I reckon that looks good. And then again, like before, we put our muzzle flash in place. And our shell ejector. Well, in this case, we don't have a shell ejection. So what I'm going to do is, yeah, we've got the shell ejection already removed for that. Sweet. So let's bring that out into here, and we'll do again play animation, and just plug that in right in here, like so. And there we go. So now we need our animation firing sequence for the super shotgun. Anim super shotty. There we go. So now, when we pick up the super shotgun, there we go. It looks a little bit large in the viewport, so let's adjust its position as well. And again, because everything's parented to this, we should be able to just move it like so. And then we'll collect the super shotgun again. Move it just a scotch over to the right, I think. And actually maybe even twist it in a bit. So you get creative with the positions. Make sure you get them lined up exactly where you want them, and you're away after that. I think what I'll do is I'll just bring that back just ever so slightly. Now we've got it off to the right a bit. Let's have a look. So we got shotgun. We got our super shotgun. And that looks pretty good. Now obviously I just found these models in a bit of a rush, so the animations for them all aren't massively great. I'm going to move that across a little bit and then just forward just a tiny bit. But you'd spend the time if you were using this for a professional game to get a really good set of models with really good animations. I think what I'm going to do on this shotgun is just move that shell ejector just a little bit further to the right like that. There we go, the shells are coming out nicely now. Alright then, so let's have another look at our double barrel, make sure that's all lined up properly and looking good. I think that muzzle flash could do with coming forward and up a little. Okay, but as you can see, just by editing the actual blueprint files, they're already loaded in. The game already comes with its weapon system, so you only need to change these over. And you've got a whole fresh new set of weapons. So we've got our pistol, we've got our super shotgun. That's much better, I like that. Okay. So, you're getting the idea. I'll do one more with you. And then we'll just presume that you understand how it works. So we're gonna add a new component again, and this time another skeletal mesh, and we'll call it SMG. Then we can delete these, parent these back to this, so they move with the model, and then now we can set our SMG up. So we'll do static model SMG, skeletal mesh, sorry. There we go, all our materials have come through just fine. Then we can get rid of the set relative location component, and we can move all of this over. And I'll explain why it's got so many extra bits in a moment, but this is all related to the auto fire camera shake. So anytime you need an auto fire weapon, I recommend using this blueprint as a template, so you get all this stuff already. So we'll do play animation, and there we go for our SMG, and then we will select the animation, which is obviously animation SMG fire. So let's see that in action. So we'll grab our SMG. And it's a little big in the viewport, I'll grant you. Alright, so let's go and set it up properly, because we neglected to do that, didn't we? So let's move it down to about there. We'll get the shell ejector, put that in the right place, about there, and we'll get the muzzle flash, and we'll put that about there. Alright then, let's see how that looks. Still a little big. Let's adjust the scale. So let's try 0.75. Because like I say, all these models have come from different places, so they will take some tweaking and fettling if you get them from places like Sketchfab like me. And there we go. Okay. So let's take this up a little and to the right a little. And let's try that. Well, how does that look against the other weapons? Let's see. So we got got our pistol, we got our shotgun, we got our super shotgun, and we got our SMG. Oh, I've got no ammo for it. I'm going to give that some more ammo. So here's a good example of how we tweak variables. So we'll grab that. It's weapon type 4, which tells us it's an SMG, and will give us 100 ammo. And that will also give us, it will identify that that's an SMG, and will only give 100 for weapon type 4. So if I show you now, We can pick up the machine gun and we'll get 10. We'll pick up the SMG and we'll get 100. So there's different ammo pools for different weapons. And we're going to look how they look. So super shotgun, SMG, and pistol. So I think the SMG needs to be a bit smaller still. So let's do 0.6. Let's see how that looks. I'd say that's about right. So let's bring it up a bit. And then once you've fettled all your weapons into place, you can start exploring some of the other parts of what this kit offers. So there we go. That's our SMG, our pistol, and maybe down a bit more. That's a bit too high. There we go. Let's try that. So pistol, SMG. That's it. So got our animations for the pistol, got our animations for the SMG. And we've got our super shotgun. And we've got our shotgun with the two-piece pump action. Which I think, looking at these, probably could do with coming in a bit and up to the right. So let's bring the whole thing. And we'll take it up a little to the right. And bring it in a bit. So let's see how that looks now. And this is the process you would go through getting all your weapons sorted and in the places that you want them. That looks much better. Much, much better. So we got our pistol, shotgun, super shotgun, and our Uzi all in place now. So what I'd recommend doing is setting up all of your weapons first of all, and then moving on to the other areas of customizing the gaming experience. But obviously, if you're going to test stuff out, you'll need a testing environment. So I've provided a blank template that you can derive levels from. So if you want to, you can just go into the core, into maps, and duplicate this. And we'll call it Boom 1. And there we go. Now we've got our own custom level that we can go in and do some stuff inside of. So we'll save all the stuff we've been working on. And there we go. Now, in addition to the animated weapons that I've got, I've also brought in some meshes for the various grenades and trip mines. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to change this mesh out for our other grenade. Compile that. And we'll set that mesh to grenade as well. There we go. Because it does some things in the construction script which sets the mesh and sets the rotation. So you can instance this mesh. So you can use the same grenade blueprint for different types of grenades, and you've got options for fuse length, damage radius, and things like that. So if I bring one out into the level, this is the throwable. This is what the player would actually throw. So you customize these when you spawn the instance of it, but you've got the mesh, the fuse length, the explosive damage, explosion radius, and the explosive force, all easily customizable, and it sets random locations and rotation offsets whenever you place one into the level. We go into the pickups, we can edit the pickup to set our new grenade model. In this case, the one I've got of an actual World War II grenade that I've already downloaded and installed. So we're going to set it in the mesh here. So as you can see, the default one is still from when I first set this up. So we'll set this up to our grenade, like so. From spoon guns. So our default mesh will always be that. It doesn't really matter too much because it's going to get set in the construction script anyway, which is why we set this grenade mesh, this pickup mesh variable down here. So we can set the mesh of the grenade up here as well. So we set the mesh to our grenade here, the mesh to our grenade here, and then in the first person character, we're going to want to go into the core, into the blueprint, into our first person character, and then in our throw grenades section, we're going to change it to our grenade here, so we throw the right grenade. Because, like I said, the grenade blueprint is customizable, so you can just change the type of grenade here rather than having several different blueprints for several different types of grenades. It's all pretty straightforward. So again, we can go into the placeables when there's trip mines, and we can set this mesh here to, I believe I called it C4. Yeah, object C4. Compile. And there we go. Now we've got C4 as our mine. So I'm just going to pitch that over to 90 degrees because of the way the targeting and normals work. So let's go into the template and we'll get some pickups from our interactables. And I'm going to put in a landmine, a trip mine even. And we'll say it will give the player 10. So the reason I have the meshes and the option to give the amount of players is you could decide to have a box of them, for example. So if we change this to the C4 one, there we go. And then we can lower it down a bit, and now we can hit play. And we can go and collect it. So you could have a box of them, or you could have a single one, and then that's given us a landmine. So now we can place them down. Did we not compile the landmine script? Let's go back to the weapons. Placeables. Oh, I understand now. It's because, oh no, I am setting it there. Yes, here we go. C4. So we need to make sure we set it, the actual objects, base mesh, and the mesh variable. Because again, when you're placing them, you could place different types of them. Here we go. Trip mines. Here we go. And that's it. This is this is a good example of what I mean with exposed variables. So when you spawn one in, we've got all these variables exposed on spawn, including the object to set it to. So we're overriding the stuff inside the blueprint, these values here, with the ones from the first person character. So here we're setting the damage, the radius, and the explosive force. So now when we play, and we pick up the mine, we can place it down, and it explodes and damages us, and there's the HUD overlay as well. So that is weapons. Now, how do we get those weapons to the player? Well, we can put down pickups. So if we go into our interactables, we'll go to the pickups, and here we go. So we've got that pistol here that we can use as well, it's not a pistol, it's the generic weapon pickup. Now, the way this works is we've got weapon types, the ammo that we can give the player, the mesh that we want to be visible, and the sound that we want to play when we pick it up. So if we want to give the player a pistol, we'll leave it as 1. We'll give them 50 rounds with it, and we've got the mesh set for pistol and the sound set there. So now if we pick up this, you'll notice in the top left, picked up ammo, because it's saying picked up ammo because we've already got that weapon. So if you already own the weapon, you'll pick up the weapon as ammo. If you don't already own the weapon, you'll pick the weapon up and it will automatically switch to it. So the way weapons works, the reason we've got that number is we've got this get weapon info system here. So it looks a bit scary and complicated, but it's not really that intimidating. So this is our array, if you will, of weapons. The reason I've got it like this is because instead of an array where you can't really see these values very easily, I'm using this select so that we can index it from whatever the weapon type is. So what happens is when we set the weapon pickup up, it's got this weapon type here. Now this corresponds to slots in this. So you can see option 1 is the pistol. So then if we go along, we've got the viewport mesh for a static one. So if we weren't using the blueprints, we could just use static meshes if you wanted to be really kind of low tech. And these also determine which weapon static model gets shown as part of the pickup. So if I demonstrate what I mean, we'll do 2 there, and we'll leave that the preview mesh as a pistol. Because the preview mesh is just for you in the editor. But now when we do this, look, it's showing the shotgun, because value 2 in this list is the shotgun. So using that value, we can determine whether or not the weapon should be auto-fired, with the delay between auto-fire shots, the pellet spread angle, the amount of pellets to fire, in this case, if we're using shotguns or projectiles that have multiple components to them, which actual projectile to use, because we're going to have multiple projectiles. So we can determine which weapon uses which projectile, the relevant sound to play for that weapon, the weapon's name, which certain blueprints will use, and the mesh to use for the ammo pickup when we put in ammo pickups down, because ammo pickups will consult this table too. So for example, if we put down an ammo pickup and we tell it to be weapon 2 for the shotgun, and we'll say it gives the player 20 shells, and then when we hit play, we can go and we'll see that now has turned into a shell, and it's given us 20 shells for the shotgun. So if I switch the shotgun now, we've got 70 because we had that thing set to give us 50, and we added that 20 to it from the ammo pickup. It's that straightforward. So I've got a blank pickup template here, which you can just use to add whatever you want, because of the save system, really, we've got a save system as part of this. So every one of these objects is connected to the save system. So the save system knows when it's been picked up and needs to be destroyed later on down the line when you're reloading a save. So we've done pickups, we've done the weapon table. Now, in relation to the weapon table, for each of these values, this index here, we've also got keeping track of the ammo in an array. So if you add more weapons to this, say if you add a pin here to add an option 9 to add a new weapon, you need to add one here for the static mesh version, one here for the auto fire type if it's going to be auto fire. We need the delay between shots, we need one for the pellet spread. It needs one for each of these, even if you're not using it, because it needs to, if you had option 8 here and you didn't include an option 9, and then you added an option 10 here and then you added a pin, that would be option 9, that would be option 10, they wouldn't match up. So even if you're not using the pellet spread or the auto fire, you still need to include an entry for it. But this is what it gets pulled from when weapons are assigned to the viewport, or when we need to design the pickup for the weapon, or anything the game needs to know about the weapon. It's going to call this function, so it's incredibly important. And then we've got the weapons owned, which again, you need to have a slot for each of these, so the game can then determine which of these weapons it should own. And even if you add a new one, it will do it automatically. And then the last thing to note is if you are going to add weapons above and beyond the ones that we've got so far, you'll need to come into here and you'll need to change these values. So this will need to be less than whatever your the weapon cap is. So if this is less than 8, it will do this. If it's not less than 8, it won't. And if this is greater than 0, it'll do this. So that needs to be arranged between the first value in this array and the last value. So again, weapons owned, ammo, and these selections here need to have the right corresponding values in the other tables. But if you're just changing the weapons that already exist, like I've showed you so far, this will just automatically work. But if you've made new weapon blueprints, you'll need to come in and figure out which slot you want to put them in, get the relevant static mesh model and all that good stuff. So speaking of static mesh models, if we bring the pistol out as well, and we'll have another one, I keep saying the pistol, it's the weapon pickup, and we'll call this 2 and give it 50 ammo. We'll call this 3 and give it 50 ammo. And we'll call this 4 and give it 50 ammo. Now, we know these are for different weapons, but to make it easier for us to keep track in the editor, we can just set the value here to whatever that weapon should be. So in this case, I've set it to the shotgun. Now this works because we have a static version of the shotgun, but for the double barrel, we don't. We only have the basic one that comes with the kit. So what we need to do is we need to go and take the skeletal mesh and we need to make a static version from it, because we can't use a skeletal mesh in this slot here because it's expecting a static mesh. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the weapons. We're going to find our skeletal mesh. In this case, it's going to be, we'll start with the super shotgun because we've already got it highlighted. So we've got an SKM here for it, this pink one here. So what we can do is we can then make a static mesh from that. So I'm going to go back into the template. I'm going to find that folder, firearms, spoon guns, and we're going to get our super shotgun folder, and we're going to save it in there. And we'll call this OBJ super shotgun. So now we've got a static version of that. So now what we can do is we can go into our game instance here, and we'll find our get viewport mesh static, and we'll find our basic double barrel shotgun, and we'll change that to super shotgun. And now what will happen is when we hit play, you'll see that it's now the model for our super shotgun. Pretty cool. Now it's sitting a little bit high, but that's okay. We can just adjust the pivot point, but that's how you would get those models showing in the game. So let's do that again. So we've got our pistol here. So let's take this, because this is supposed to be an SMG, and we'll go into our spoon guns folder again. We'll get our SMG, we'll open up the skeletal mesh, and we'll make a static mesh, save it back to the same place, spoon guns, SMG, and we'll call this OBJ. I'm going to start putting spoon on these just so I can differentiate them from the base ones that I've supplied. So now that we've done that, we can go back into the game instance, find our SMG, change it to the spoon version, and we're away. So if we hit play now, you'll notice our SMG is now our new updated version, but without any ammo. So again, very simple to do. Now to fix the pivot point on the super shotgun, we look at it in the viewport and we show the pivot. The pivot's really low, so it's getting elevated above. So what we need to do really is export this. So we'll asset actions, export, and I'm just going to save it to my documents folder for now. Export, and then we'll do re-import, and I'll do OBJ super shotgun FBX. Now we need to reset these values because it's facing the wrong way now. So if I was to drag it out into the world, you'll see that A, it's way too large, and B, it's facing the wrong way. So we need to sort that out. So what we can do is we can go to our transform down here on our import settings, because now that we've re-imported it, this is showing up. When you just export one, you won't be able to re-import it, so it's really difficult to make changes to it. So we're just going to do a uniform scale of 1, and we're going to do an import rotation of 0, because it was -180 for some reason. And there we go. So now if we look back at the map, a bit more reasonable. Probably still a touch too large. So what we can do is change that to maybe 0.75, re-import the mesh. Now a lot of the gun setting up is going to be fettling with things like this. So this is something you do in any project. It's not just a drawback of this particular version. So just bear that in mind. This is just to be expected. So let's do, now we can figure out how low down we need to take this. So we can do -50. Is that too far? Yeah, that's way too far. So I'd say it's split the difference and do -25. And we'll re-import that. And that looks much more appropriate. Let's just try -20. Get it lifted just a bit more. There we go. So now, when we hit play, these should all be about the same height. The pistol's a little high. There we go. Now when we hit play, the weapons themselves will automatically reference what the weapon pickup, sorry, will automatically reference what model they should be, which is why we include them in this list here. So whatever the preview match model is really unimportant. That won't be what it shows up as in the level. So it will, like when the weapon pickup loads in, it will reference what mesh it should be based on its weapon type. So for example, this is weapon type 4, so it's an SMG, this is 3, so it's a super shotgun, so it knows that, and it can become the right weapon. Now as for the shotgun, we have a much easier way of doing that. Because it's in 2 pieces, what we can do is we can drag these pieces out into the world, like so. And then what we can do is we can right click on these and merge the actors. So click merge actors, and then what we do is find a place to save it, which is we're going to be right back into the folder it came from. So spoon guns, shotgun, and we're going to call it OBJ spoon pump static, because it's the one with the pump not going to be moving on it, which is what we want for our weapon pickup. So we can go into our enhanced FPS game instance, and we can find our basic shotgun here, and we could swap that now for our spoon pump static. All right, there we go. So now when we hit play, you'll notice that the shotgun has the right model and everything is automatically being done. Now its pivot point is a little bit off as well, so we're going to repeat the process. So we'll do asset actions, export, and we'll export to spoon pump static FBX, export, and then we can re-import it with OBJ spoon pump static. Done. And now we need to fettle its properties again. So we'll do that as 1, that as 0, because I believe this just exports with whatever your last import settings were. So that should do that nicely. And just to make sure, yep, there we go. So now what we're going to do is going to put these side by side so you can see the changes going on with the pivot. So let's show the pivot, and we want to bring it back along the Y. So let's do -50 and see where that puts us. And now we can re-import the mesh. We can actually work on it. So -60. There we go. That looks about perfect. And that's it. That's that simple. So now we can pick up the pump action. We can pick up the double barrel. We can pick up the Uzi. And we've got no ammo in that. Got the double barrels all set up. And everything's cushy. And that's our weapons all sorted. We've got our pickups. We've got our viewport models. We've got our animations. and we've got our static mesh models all set up and done. So last thing I'll say is, like I say, these are just there for just editor use, these preview meshes. So you can just use it to set the mesh up and get it positioned how you want it to be. So we don't have a static mesh model for the pistol yet. So again, I'll just do that real quickly. So any skeletal meshes you'll need to do this for to get a static one. So we'll just we'll edit that. We'll make static mesh. Again, we'll save it right back to our firearms folder. And we'll call it obj spoom pistol. And then, like before, we'll need to then export it and re-import it. So let's get rid of a couple of these tabs. We've set our trip mines up, we've set our grenades up, and we've set the FMG, the double barrel, and the shotgun up. We've done the pistol, and that's all we're going to need. So now we've got our spoon pistol, we can go ahead and export it. That'll do. Yep, export that please, and then we can re-import it. Obj spoon pistol. And again, I need to reset those import settings. So let's just go down. And now that we can actually do that, we can get it done. So re-import base mesh, and we'll show our pivots. Our pivot looks pretty spot on. So we can hit save. And again, go into the EFPS enhanced game instance and change this out for our spoon pistol. It is that simple to add new weapons to the system. It really is. So now we've got this ammo here can be a spoon pistol. And there we go. So now we've got our viewport models for our weapons, our firing models, our preview meshes. So we can do this with this as well. We can get our pump. No, it's super shotgun. There we go. And this is weapon type 3. So this should be our pump action shotgun actually. So we'll do pump for that one. Shotgun pump static. And the reason I'm doing I set these viewport models up for you to preview them like this is just so you can fettle the heights and stuff and the distances between the models. So this is going to be an SMG. So if we do our spoon SMG, there we go. We can see the magazine's clipping through the ground a bit there, so we can lift it up. We can get rid of these static models. We don't need them. There we go. And we'll get rid of the ammo, the static model there, and that one there. Right, so there we go. So now we've got access to a pump action, a super shotgun, and our SMG. And obviously you can tweak the size and scale of the models in the actual models files, but there we go. So now we've got our main guns set up for the game. We've gone over how to include them in the game instance. We've gone over how to set up the actual blueprints themselves, and we're going to go over how to add a new weapon to the game very shortly. So I hope that section is all well sorted, suited, and booted in your mind. You know how to set up the preview meshes, you know how to set up the weapons, you know how to set up the ammo to add. And the last thing I'll do is just go over how the pickups actually work. So if we go into the interactables and into the pickups and open the weapon up, you'll see there's quite a lot of stuff, but you don't need to worry about adding or doing anything with any of this. This is all done automatically for you. It generates the messages. So if you want to change the weapon obtained or the ammo obtained messages there, you can. We've got our destroy event. We've got our mark collected, which then tells the game instance to add this to the list of actors to destroy when we save the game. Pretty straightforward. So Here's our pickup section. So when we log our actor for removal, we're doing it here, and we're playing our sound here, which is already an exposed variable. So is the preview mesh, and so is the ammo and weapon type. So you don't need to do anything in the blueprints for the pickups. They're all set up for you already. And even if you add a new weapon, you won't need to add a new weapon pickup. You'll just change the number here to whatever the next number is down the list. Pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it camera for now, go finish setting up all the weapons. Okay, now we've got everything set up. We've got all our weapons integrated into the system. It's time to go over how to add new weapon slots and new weapons above and beyond the slots that the game already comes with. So if we jump into our game instance, you'll see we've got the 9 slots here if you include 0 for each of the different things. Just make sure nothing else needs compiling. Good. So we've got 8 slots so far, and each one is occupied with a weapon. So we're going to get another weapon added into this, so I can show you exactly how you go about adding additional weapons to the game. It's really straightforward. So the first thing we want to do is add a pin to that. Then we want to add a pin to that, and a pin to this, a pin to this, and a pin to this. So basically we're just going along all of these and making sure we add an option 9 to all of the options available to us. There we go. Now we're ready for our new weapon to populate this slot in our get weapon info. The next thing we're going to want to do is add an element to the array, because we're going to need to track the ammo for it, for ammo, and then we're going to have to add an element to the array for whether or not we own the weapon, and then that should be it. We are done with the game instance. Now obviously we're going to need a weapon to add, so I've gone with this rather swanky little plasma rifle here. So let's go and create the weapon. So much like before, we'll go into our firearms and into blueprints, and we're going to just duplicate the assault rifle, and we'll call it I'm going to make it a laser gun, so I'll call it laser rifle. Not a very original name, but hey ho. Even though the object itself is called plasma rifle, but not to worry. Right, so we don't have a charging handle, so we don't need to worry about that. And we don't need to worry about this anymore. So we can compile. I'm going to have to get rid of that. Compile. Okay, we've got an AR base, which we'll rename to laser rifle. Okay, so we're just building up the actual viewport weapon now. So if we go to our model here, we'll notice we've got our AK still in there. So we'll just get our plasma rifle. There we go. Okay, now our rifle is in place. We can do a few more bits and pieces to customize this. So we've got our shell ejection. We don't want that, so we can get rid of that and compile. There we go. So now we've got our weapon. And we can use this once we've got a we don't need the ejected shell. I've deleted the wrong thing, haven't I? Let me just get that back. Yeah, there we go. So we want to keep the muzzle flash and delete the shell ejection, because we're not going to be ejecting shells, but we can keep the function so that we can call our emitter, and we can change the emitter to whatever we want down the line to make it look a bit more like a laser rifle firing. So we've got all the stuff done in this really. So if we go into the viewport, this is our blueprint weapon, and we can take our muzzle flash location, just like before, add this a bit more where we want it. There we go. Okay, sorted. So now that we've got the blueprint, we can start populating our game instance here. So we're going to have option 9 is going to be our laser rifle. Lovely. And then we need to do the same for a static mesh, so we can so the ammo and the pickups and the relevant things can reference this, and we can use a preview mesh in the window. So we'll add the plasma rifle in there as well. Okay, is it going to be auto fire? Yes, I think it will be. And we'll have it at the same kind of fire rate as the the assault rifle, so 0.15. Now, the reason it's important to keep this the same is because I've just duplicated it. So we're going to want the value in this to be the same or roughly the same. So as you can see, it's 0.12 here, and it's 0.15 here. So they need to be roughly the same. Actually, you know what? We'll do 0.12. We'll make them exactly the same. So it fires a little bit faster than the standard assault rifle. We don't want any pellet spread. We don't want any pellets to fire. Now we need to do a projectile, which we'll come to in a moment. But I've already got a sound effect for it, so I'm just going to pop that in there right away. And we'll use the name option here to say laser rifle. Okay, so now it's in our get weapon info. Anything that needs to reference it can reference it. So for example, if we were to go and get a pickup, no, it's in interactables. If we were to get a weapon pickup and drag that out into the world, we can set this to plasma so we can see it a bit more clearly. And there we go. And we'll just lift that up a little bit. We'll set its weapon type to 9, ammo to 100, and there we go. So now when we're in the world, it will pull that info, and there we go. It's pulled the plasma rifle model from our game instance, and it's given it to us now. And there we go. We've got our weapon equipped, and we've got our firing, but no projectile yet because we haven't made it. But that's it. That's pretty much it. Once we've done the projectile, it's in. It's done. All we got to do then is set up the ammo mesh for it, but the ammo functionality is already there. Actually, we don't even need to do that. If I drag an ammo pickup into the world, I forgot how easy this skit was. We're going to do this, and we're going to set it to 9. And then in our instance here, we've got our ammo pickup mesh. This is where we put our plasma ammo. So OBJ ammo plasma. And then that's it. That's it for the pickup. The pickup will now just become plasma. So if we do the preview mesh just so we can see it a little bit better. Is that object just really small? There we go. Yeah, it's just really, really tiny. So let's drag one of those out. Yeah, that is pretty small. So let's just up the size of that a little bit. So we'll get 10. Let's try 50. Again, when you download other people's models, you may have to play around with this to get it working the way you want it to work. So there we go. So we can remove that now. And you'll notice that if we pick up this and this, oh, I didn't set it to give us any ammo. Let's add 566 plasma rounds when we pick it up. And you'll notice in the top left, if I look down and just see it, weapon obtained, laser rifle, ammo obtained as well. And this is why we have the name in here, because a lot of the other blueprints reference these values. So we've got to just adjust the model a little bit. So I'm thinking if we bring it along a little bit, and then potentially down, and we'll see how that looks. That's pretty cool. I think maybe if we actually take it across, bring it in, and just rotate it ever so slightly, that might look pretty baller. Yeah, that's much better. And then there you go, we picked up the ammo. So the ammo system, and it's all incorporated into it now, works perfectly. Good stuff. So because we've added a new weapon, we need to go into the first person character, and we need to increase the value here. So our max weapon is no longer 8. I'm going to set that to 9. I'm going to compile. And then that is literally it. So now we can switch backwards and forwards between the weapons. So got our laser rifle, We'll switch to our pistol, and we can switch back to our laser rifle. Good stuff. So let's make a projectile for it, shall we? Okay, so now we need to add the projectile to it. What we're going to do first of all is go and create one. So if we jump into the core and into blueprints and into projectiles, you'll notice there's a child template here. So we can just duplicate this and call it our laser bolt. So we'll call it PRJ laser bolt. And that will mean with all the functionality for registering hit events and the like is already included in the blueprint, as you can see. So all we really need to do is change a few values in here. So I'm going to change this to a cylinder. And we'll do cylinder like so. And we'll scale it up a little. So let's get our scaling tool and we'll do it like that. I'll make it a bit thicker and a bit longer as well. Okay, now make sure you don't mess with the collision on this. This should have no collision because it's all been done in the collision component up here. So all we need to do now really is give it a nice lasery material. So we'll do glow. These are all supplied with the kit. So there we go. And then we can compile that. And we're ready to add that into our game instance. So if we go into the game instance and we select our weapon info function and we'll do PRJ laser bolt. Now if you ever need to expose this function, it's just over here on the left hand side, get weapon info. All pretty straightforward. Now we've already set everything else up. It should just be a case of grabbing our hands on the weapon, getting some ammo, and there we go. Now we got a sweet ass laser rifle. All beans. Sweet. And if you want to up the fire rate or tweak anything else, so like say for example, the screen shakes a bit too much, then we can go back into our weapons and we can go into the actual blueprint for it that we made. And where is it? Where's our laser rifle? There it is. And we will just tweak the screen shake settings here. So instead of 0.25, we'll do 0.1. So now the screen shake for the laser rifle will be a lot less pronounced than it was. There we go, we've got minimal screen shake now. There's a little bit on the pistol, not really that noticeable. It's noticeable on the laser rifle, and obviously we can, if we want to change the projectile's impact emitter, we can do so very simply here, and it's also an exposed variable, so you can do it when it's spawned as well, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So there we go, we've created and added a new weapon, we've added a new projectile, and that is pretty much the entire weapon system in a nutshell, really.